All right, let's talk Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a Steelers team that's made a lot of massive moves so far this offseason, and there's a couple of them that have been really, really smart. We've covered them a lot, but there's another one that's come out very recently that I think may be the smartest one of them all. It's a sneaky good move, especially when you dive deep into the data. We'll get into it in just a second, but first, I'm Nick, that's Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, without further ado, let's jump into the report, then we'll go into the data and then go into just kind of talk about it on the other side. Really interesting move here by the Steelers. First up, let's get into the report, the tweet via Ian Rappaport over on Twitter or X or whatever the kids call it these days. All right, the Steelers are signing free agent safety Juan Thornhill to a one-year deal per me, Rappaport, and at Mike Garofalo, an opportunity with one of the NFL's best defenses to show he's still a top safety. The former Browns standout lands in a division he knows well. All right, Juan Thornhill seems to be like a good player, a good solid player, but I think this has a chance to be a really nice pickup for the Pittsburgh Steelers because just a few years ago, Thornhill was playing at a almost Pro Bowl level. He was playing at a stud level, and then something really tragic happened. He went to the Cleveland Browns. Let's pull up this chart here to really indicate it. So we've got two lines on here. In blue, we've got overall PFF grade, and in green, we've got coverage PFF grade. And in 2021 and 2022, Thornhill was with the Kansas City Chiefs. And then 2023, he went to Cleveland and he stayed there through 2024. And you can notice the trajectory he's on. He's north of 70 overall grade and coverage grade. He's doing great with the Chiefs. 2021 gets even better in 2022. What happens when you go to Cleveland? As everyone knows, only bad things happen. He goes straight into the tank, loses about 10 points, sometimes it looks like a little bit more in some of the cases here, off of his PFF grade. Rebounds a little bit in 2024, but still well short of his 2021 and 2022 numbers right there. So again, is Thornhill a bad player? Or does Cleveland just suck? I think Pittsburgh fans, you guys know the answer to that one. But when it talks about Thornhill, what he was even able to do with the Cleveland Browns, his numbers, while they were a disappointment off of what he was doing earlier in his career, they actually aren't too far off one key Pittsburgh Steelers safety, and that, of course, is Minkah Fitzpatrick. Let's go into graph number 2 here. Big Microsoft Excel channel, by the way. Love looking at charts here for you guys. So here you got overall grade, coverage grade, and run defense grade comparing Thornhill and Fitzpatrick. You can see overall PFF grade essentially the same. This is last year, strictly 2024, last year's numbers. Overall grade and coverage grade is basically identical. Run defense grade, Fitzpatrick has a little bit, pretty decent advantage over Juan Thornhill. But you can see when it comes to covering people and when it comes to overall performance, Thornhill, even in Cleveland, which there's obviously a lot of problems in Cleveland, he was doing and playing at a level very similar, just a little bit less if you compare the run defense grade as Minkah Fitzpatrick, who we all know is a quality player, a star safety for the Steelers. When you factor in all this data, this looks like a phenomenal get for Pittsburgh. Another massive steal for Omar Khan, who so far is having a really good offseason. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But first, Steelers fans in the comment section below, now that you've seen the data, how would you grade the Juan Thornhill acquisition? Do you really love it now? Give it an A. Not sure about it. You really don't know what value it's going to provide. Give it a C. Do you absolutely hate it for some weird reason? Give it an F. Whatever it is, grade the acquisition of Juan Thornhill by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Put it in the comment section below. But Miles, over to you. What are your thoughts on this move by Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and you compare it to Fitzpatrick a little bit here, and I'm gonna kind of compare it to the other Pittsburgh Steelers safety, one I'm more familiar with, and Deshaun Elliott, a guy played a large portion of his tenure in Baltimore before going to Detroit, Miami, and then eventually the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think you can see similarly, especially where Juan Thornhill has gotten a little bit deficient. You can see the looseness of being on the Cleveland Browns has gone to him. I think that's what's dragged down his, PFF grades. There's certain things that he wasn't able to do, but you look at Thornhill. One thing that he was really, really, bad at last year, unfortunately, was tackling. He had a really low tackling grade. I think and that probably led to, run defense grades as well. He had some lower grades there during the season. Overall, he's pretty good, but he had some low lows, but he had some high highs, and it balances each other out. A 45 tackling grade isn't great, but throughout his career, the last couple seasons before that in Kansas City, he was around a 70 tackling grade, which is about average, a pretty decent one. If someone's 70, you think that's a pretty good tackler. You don't have to worry about them. They're not a liability. But you look at Deshaun Elliott, this is a guy who was up and down his whole career, 50, 60, something like that, as far as, tackling grades bouncing all around. Then he comes to Pittsburgh. What does he get? A 90.6 tackling grade this past season. Mike Tomlin, this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, they're all about, just being consistent, all the small details. They focus on everything. They really are able to whip players into shape and get them into the best versions of themselves. So that's what I'm expecting from this Juan Thornhill move. I think we saw the best version of him those last 2 years in Kansas City, because you see the 4 years he was there, 3 years, 2020, 2021, 2022. You could see the climb, a 59 grade in 2020, 70.1 grade in 21, then a 72.7 grade in 2022. He's climbing, but then he hits the Browns and he takes a slide back. Still not horrible, but he takes a big slide back. I think he's going to take a big slide forward with this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, one that, breeds just being good in all aspects, not getting by, not letting little things slide by. They're very stringent on all those kind of things. So I think overall, this is a good signing for the Steelers because they probably give him a little bit of a discount for the shortcomings the Browns caused him. But I think they can easily whip him into shape to get him back to his previous high highs, but probably even be a little bit higher if we're being honest.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. And for those of you who aren't familiar with PFF tackling, anything in the 70s is really good, right? If as a team, what usually is one or two in the NFL is around 75 as a tackling grade. So as a player, if you're in the 70s, you're doing a heck of a job from a tackling perspective. And this was the Steelers defense. And we talked about it a few days ago when they brought in Darius Slay and said it was a really good move. It's because their coverage grade last season, their overall coverage as a team, front end and back end, whether it's the corners or the safeties, really struggled, right? They were 23rd in the NFL, right around 59 PFF grade. So even when you factor in, and this is the real critical part of Juan Thornhill, even if for some weird reason, I don't think this is true, if the Cleveland version of Thornhill is just who he is at this point, it still is a 7-8 point boost on coverage automatically coming to the Steelers versus where they were last year. If it is the fact that the Cleveland Browns really dragged down Juan Thornhill, then we're talking a 10-15 point boost. So no matter how you look at it, you're getting a significant upgrade on one of your bigger weaknesses. In fact, the coverage grade was the second worst part overall of this Pittsburgh Steelers team, according to PFF. So this is a phenomenal pickup for Pittsburgh. And I'm always a big fan of bringing in quality veteran players that are stuck in bad organizations because they just get dragged down by the collective. It's like the reverse halo effect. We see championship teams, everyone thinks their players are fantastic. They're better than they are, right? We saw this with the Chiefs when they won their Super Bowl. They had a good corner, L'Jarius Sneed. Everyone thought he was all pro. He gets traded to the Tennessee Titans and he's kind of, he's average. He's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he's not like this magical superstar everyone thought he was. We can see the reverse effect sometimes really with a team like the Cleveland Browns, where a player is with the Browns and like, he plays for Cleveland. He must stink. He must be terrible. And then he leaves and does some really good things. I think the best example of that is Baker Mayfield, right? Mayfield with the Browns, he did some winning there, right? Obviously had a couple good seasons, one playoff appearance, as I'm sure you Steelers fans really want to forget, but it was a lot of bad, honestly, with Baker, with Cleveland. And now he goes to Tampa and he's doing a lot better, doing a lot of great things. People love Baker Mayfield. The Browns just have this habit of bringing quality players down. The Steelers, to your point, have, at least in the past, brought players up, and I think that's exactly what they'll do here with with Thornhill going forward. And Mize, as kind of a final question to kind of wrap this up, do you think the Steelers are done making moves for the secondary? They've obviously made two good ones with Slay and Thornhill here. Do you think they keep going after it, or do you think they go in a different direction to fill out their roster, the rest of free agency, not the draft, but just free agency?
Well, I think that, Pittsburgh, they still have a good amount of cap if you look at them. I believe they're eighth in the NFL right now, of about $46 million left in cap space. So they have the money to go make some moves. As far as the secondary goes, I like what they do. I think that they're solid at safety now. You got Elliott, Fitzpatrick, and Thornhill. I think that's a good trio to have. I think bringing in Slay with the two young guys, with Beanie Bishop and Porter, and then Trice as well in that mix. I think you're pretty good. I think maybe not a huge splash signing. They could use a solid veteran in that because you got three really young guys and one veteran guy in Darius Slay. So maybe get one more veteran guy, throw him into the mix because you've already got the young guys to build your solid base. I think maybe if they were to do that, that could be something we see happen here. I don't think we see a big splash signing at the corner position. I think if anything, maybe they're looking a little bit along the defensive line, a little bit in the linebacker rooms. Who knows? Maybe they're trying to find that special running back out there, the guy that really scratches their fancy. Maybe that's somebody they go for in the draft as well. But I think it's when it comes to secondary, maybe like a second, third tier free agent come into this team to help really round out the depth, get everybody comfortable. Not really at one injury, this team they're back to where they could have some issues. So I think a free agent, mid-tier free agent signing of a secondary player would be really helpful for this team.